So in today's video, I want to share another tip I have about data science, which is to document and fact check every assumption. So in all data science projects, there's a big layer of assumption and not 100% proven fact that are laid out. And these assumptions are all crucial in order to get the project started. So if you open any research paper, you will see in the limitation section a bunch of these assumptions that are clearly laid out. However, these assumptions are not always properly documented, even in like top-notch research. And usually those undocumented assumptions are what lead to the biggest time sink in research project and data science project. Sometimes some underlying assumption that were there in the project don't hold anymore with the new data that was found. So if you don't know about them, what will happen is that you're just going to work your way into a scientific dead end. Therefore, the tips I have for you is that in order to get a good visibility about this foundational layer of assumption is to, from the start, document them heavily. So there are two main types of assumption in a data science project. So there are the assumption that you build up during your project, you know about them because you're making them along the way. And then there's the other type of assumption that were there before you even started the project. The first kind, not too problematic. Most data scientists know about them. They know that they have to document them in some way. The only kind of tips I have here is that if the project gets longer and longer, keep documenting them. A good rule of thumb about if there's enough documentation for this kind of assumption that you're making along your analysis is that if you can't write a limitation section of a paper with your documentation, most likely it's incomplete. So just make sure that at any given time you're able to say like, here's the research project that I'm doing, or the data science project, and here's why I'm doing these steps in the analysis, and what's the limitation in each of them. The second type is the problematic one, and this is where most of the problem arise. They are often completely overlooked by the data scientist or the undergrad or Ph.D. student that is doing the research, because most of the time these assumptions are just taken as basic facts, or not even known that this is why we're using this analysis technique, or this is why we're doing it in this certain way. So this part where there's a foundational layer of assumption that we were given to you, you have to ask a heckload of questions before your project even start to understand and know them ahead of time. Even statement like about the usefulness of the project or the end goal, all of these need to be documented and fact checked. So having this proper mapping of assumption in place, there's two main benefits that will be provided to you. So having this proper mapping of assumption in place will provide and unlock two major benefits. The first one is that it allows you to control the flow of the project and the next steps. So if you know what your assumptions are and you have documented them, you're kind of the subject expert of your project. And with new information that you're generating, you're able to check out with the other assumption if like they're still holding, and be able to steer your project toward whatever the end goal is. And if ever you're done with one part of the analysis, since you already documented all previous assumptions, you don't have to wait to talk to your supervisor or your PI or whatever, your manager, in order to push the project forward. You know the goal, you know what assumption you were done previously. You can make your own assumption then and say, even if they're wrong, it doesn't matter, because you document them, you know where you're going, and then you're able to push the project in whatever direction you think is best. So this put the control of the project in your own hands instead of your supervisor, your PI or whatever. They become more of like a contributor. While if you don't document your assumption and you're just waiting for the input, it's kind of the opposite. You're the contributor, and they're kind of the owner of the project. So the second major benefit is that it allows you to raise a big red flag if one of the assumptions that was documented previously doesn't hold anymore with the new information. So this part is crucial. If there was an assumption, even if your PI gave it to you or somebody else in another research paper set it up, and it's proven to be wrong with your current data, it's super important that you take this into consideration before moving on. You have to raise a red flag, you have to stop the whatever experiment that you're doing, your research project, and figure out why this thing is wrong and how does it impact the rest of the analysis. Because if the assumption is wrong and you have no idea about this assumption, what usually ends up happening is that you're gonna see a series very stressful stretch. So basically what will happen is that your result will be either me getting you to nothing, or your result will be wrong every time for whatever reason. They will not make much sense, and then you're going to present those results to your supervisor, and then they will say like, guys, it's not right, something seems off, go check your code to see if you didn't make a mistake. And then you're going to check your code to see if you didn't make a mistake, and you're going to start to be paranoid because you checked everything, and then you will not know if you're right or if like the code is wrong, or you're just too dumb to see it. So if you have the assumption and you know which part your analysis hit that is now proven to be wrong, then you know where to go. You know that you have to figure out how to move on from this part. Everything above it in the assumption chain, you disregard because this one is wrong. Sometimes an assumption that is wrong is not that much of an issue, but sometimes it's critical, and if this one is wrong, nothing else holds and everything else is just noise. So yeah, this benefit is that you can raise the flag and you can stop, think about it, and then move on, and you will reduce a lot of stress in the process. So there's this example I always give of someone that I was doing an internship within a molecular biology lab, and the very, very underlying assumption about our data was that the kit that the person had to do the proteomic analysis was good, and it was working and it was functional given X or Y parameters. And then for a year, all of the data that the person was having was all weird, and every code analysis that this person did afterward all seemed to not make any sense. But the core problem was the kit. The actual kit didn't hold in whatever experimental setting this person was using it. Therefore, it didn't matter what the person did after the kit was used, because the kit was the issue. And as soon as the kit was changed to another kind, there it is. The data made sense. So yeah, that's kind of at this level of documentation of the assumption that need to happen. So to conclude, applying this level of documentation of the assumption, even if like it's not yours, it's like an assumption that another grad student did or another person in your team did, this will effectively make you directly a better data scientist, because you will have much more confidence about your result. You're going to be able to explain them better, and it kind of make your whole project more interesting, because if you're able to confidently tell your whole story about your project, and on top of this, before there's any back and forth, tell, here I use those 5 assumptions. This is perfect. The assumption that you made, even if they're wrong, is not problematic, because they will be able, like the people that you're gonna talk to, your PI, your team members, or your stakeholders, even if they challenge the assumption, this is good, because then you're gonna get feedback about how they hold in different circumstances. And even if an assumption holds not all the time, it's all right. It's all right to have like some things to fix up or improve in the future, because this assumption or this part of the analysis can then be refined in another cycle of your research project. yeah, and this, yeah, it just make for better science if you're able to tell which part of your analysis you're unsure about. So that's it. Document your assumption, fact check them, and you should be good to go. So have a wonderful week, everyone.